You are in the Holy Land, in the year 1187, living as a Templar knight during the height of the Crusades, when faith and sword determine the fate of kingdoms and souls. The morning call to prayer echoes across the stone walls of your fortress, but this time it comes from the wrong direction. Your eyes snap open in the pre-dawn darkness, and the cold reality hits you like a mailed fist to the chest. That is not a Christian bell calling you to lauds, but the voice of a muezzin announcing the dawn prayer from the walls of Jerusalem. The city has fallen. Again, Brother William Fitzgerald sits up in the narrow cot beside yours, his weathered face pale in the flickering candlelight. You have shared this cramped chamber in the fortress of Kerak for 3 years now, but today feels different. Today feels like an ending. Did you hear that, Brother Edmund? His voice carries the weight of a man who has seen too many defeats, too many friends buried in foreign soil. The Yorkshire accent still colours his words. Even after 15 years in the Holy Land, you nod, pulling on your woolen undertunic. The fabric scratches against skin, scarred by countless battles, each mark a testament to your dedication to Christ and the protection of pilgrims. But today, as you dress in the familiar ritual of a Templar knight, you wonder if any of it has mattered. The stone floor is cold against your bare feet as you move to the narrow window. Beyond the walls of Korak, the desert stretches endlessly, painted in shades of amber and gold by the rising sun. Somewhere out there, Saladin's forces are moving, methodically reclaiming every Christian stronghold they can find. The reports have been coming in for weeks. Acre, Nablus, Haifa. One by one, the great castles are falling. Brother Edmund, William says again, and this time there is something different in his voice. Fear? No. William Fitzgerald has never shown fear. Not even when you both charged into the thick of battle at Mungizard 10 years ago. This is something else. This is the sound of a man questioning everything he has believed. You turn from the window, and what you see stops your breath. William is holding a letter, the wax seal already broken. The parchment trembles slightly in his hands. What news, you ask, though part of you already knows. Part of you has been expecting this moment since the day you took your vows as a poor knight of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. Grandmaster Gerard de Rydfort is dead, William says quietly, killed at the horns of Hattin, along with most of our brothers. The true cross is lost. King Guy is captured. He pauses, and when he continues, his voice is barely a whisper. We are all that remains in this region, 43 knights and 60 sergeants, holding a fortress that Saladin could take with half his army. The words hit you like physical blows. Gerard de Rydfort, the man who had personally approved your admission to the order 7 years ago. The true cross, the most sacred relic in Christendom, the fragment of wood upon which Christ himself had died. Gone, all of it, gone. But it is the last part of William's statement that truly chills you. You are not just Templar knights anymore. You are the last Templar knights in this part of the Holy Land. The weight of 8 decades of tradition, of sacrifice, of unwavering faith, now rests on the shoulders of 103 men trapped in a fortress that suddenly feels more like a tomb. What are your orders, brother? William asks, and you realize he is looking to you for leadership. Edmund de Montfort, youngest son of a minor English lord, now responsible for preserving what remains of the most powerful military order in Christendom. You walk to the wooden chest at the foot of your bed and begin the ritual you have performed every morning for 7 years. First, the white linen shirt, blessed by the chaplain and embroidered with small crosses. Then, the brown woolen breeches, practical and warm. The leather boots, reinforced with iron studs for better grip in battle. Each piece of clothing is more than mere fabric. It is a statement of faith, a declaration of purpose. But today, as you reach for your white mantle with its distinctive red cross, your hand hesitates. This simple piece of cloth has marked you as a target for every Muslim warrior from Damascus to Cairo. It has also marked you as a protector of the innocent, a defender of the faith, a man who has pledged his life to something greater than himself. Brother Edmund, William prompts gently. You lift the mantle and settle it across your shoulders. The weight of it seems heavier today, but that might just be the weight of responsibility. We follow our rule, Brother William. We do not surrender. We do not flee. We protect the innocent and serve Christ until our last breath, even if it means certain death. You meet his eyes, and in them you see not fear, but relief. Relief that someone has given him permission to die as he has lived, in service to his faith and his brothers, especially if it means certain death. That is what we swore, William. Non nobis Domini sed nomine to dar gloriam. Not unto us, O Lord, but unto thy name give glory. The motto of your order, spoken in Latin but carved into your heart in the common tongue of duty and sacrifice. A knock at the door interrupts your thoughts. Brothers, the commander wishes to see all knights in the chapel immediately. You and William exchange glances. Commander Geoffrey de Lusignan has been like a father to both of you, teaching you not just the arts of war, but the deeper mysteries of the Templar way. If he is calling an emergency assembly, then the situation is even worse than you feared. The chapel of Carac is a small, austere space carved from the same golden stone as the rest of the fortress. No elaborate decorations, no comfortable benches, just a simple altar, a wooden cross, and stone floors worn smooth by decades of kneeling knights. This morning, 43 white-mantled figures stand in silent rows, their faces grave in the candlelight. Commander Geoffrey stands before the altar, his grey beard and lined face showing every one of his 57 years. But his eyes are as sharp as ever, and when he speaks, his voice carries the authority of a man who has served the order for over 30 years. Brothers, he begins, I will not lie to you about our situation. Saladin has taken Jerusalem. Most of our major strongholds have fallen. King Guy is a prisoner, and the kingdom of Jerusalem exists now only in name. He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembled knights. We have perhaps a week before Saladin's forces reach Korak, maybe less. A murmur runs through the ranks, quickly silenced by Geoffrey's raised hand. But we are Templars, he continues, his voice growing stronger. We do not exist to preserve our own lives. We exist to serve Christ and protect those who cannot protect themselves. There are still over 200 pilgrims sheltering in this fortress, men and women who trusted us to keep them safe on their journey to the holy places. We will not abandon them now. Brother Marcus de Beaumont, one of the older knights, steps forward. Commander, what of the treasure? The gold, the relics, the documents? Surely we cannot let them fall into Saladin's hands. Geoffrey nods gravely. The treasure will be divided among those knights strong enough to attempt an escape. Some of you must survive to rebuild the order elsewhere, but the majority of us will remain here with the pilgrims to face whatever comes. The silence that follows is profound. You can hear your own heartbeat, can feel the weight of the cross pendant against your chest. Around you, 42 other men are making the same calculation you are making. Escape with the treasure and live to fight another day, or stay with the innocents and die with honor. I will need volunteers for both missions, Geoffrey says quietly. Those who stay face certain death. Those who flee face the possibility of being hunted across 3 kingdoms with a price on their heads. Neither choice is easy. Without hesitation, you step forward. I volunteer to stay, Commander. William immediately joins you, and within moments, 35 other knights have done the same. Only 7 men step aside, and you can see the shame and relief warring in their faces. They will carry the burden of survival, the weight of rebuilding everything that is about to be lost. Very well, Geoffrey says, and there is pride in his voice. Brothers who are departing, you will leave tonight under cover of darkness. Take the pilgrim route toward Damascus, then circle back toward Acre, God willing. Some of our brothers there still hold that fortress. He turns to the larger group. The rest of us will prepare for siege. We have supplies for perhaps a month, if we are careful. We will make Saladin pay dearly for every stone of this fortress." As the assembly breaks up, you find yourself walking beside Brother Thomas de Clare, a knight who joined the order the same day you did. His young face is set with determination, but you can see the fear beneath it. "Edmund," he says quietly, "do you truly believe we are doing the right thing, staying here to die when we could escape and continue the fight elsewhere?" It is a question that has been nagging at you as well, but as you consider it, the answer becomes clear. "Thomas, when you took your vows, what did you promise? To defend the weak, to serve Christ, to live in poverty, chastity, and obedience. And have those vows changed because our situation has become desperate?" Thomas shakes his head slowly. "No, I suppose they have not." "Then we stay," you say simply. "We stay, and we show the world what it means to be a knight of the Temple. We show them that some things are worth dying for." But even as you speak these words of confidence, a doubt creeps into your mind. In 7 years as a Templar, you have seen miracles and disasters in equal measure. You have witnessed acts of incredible bravery and shocking cowardice. You have prayed with dying friends and celebrated victories that turned to defeats within days. Now, as you prepare for what will almost certainly be your final battle, you find yourself wondering about the true purpose of your order. Are you really serving God, or are you just pawns in a larger political game? Are the pilgrims you protect truly safer because of your presence, or would they be better served by negotiation and diplomacy rather than the sword? These are dangerous thoughts for a Templar knight, questions that strike at the very heart of your identity. But they are questions you can no longer avoid as you face the end of everything you have known and believed. The day passes quickly in preparation. Weapons are sharpened, armor repaired, prayers said. The pilgrims, mostly French and German nobles making their way to Jerusalem, are informed of the situation as gently as possible. Some weep, some rage, but most accept their fate with the same resignation you see in your brother knights. As evening falls, you stand on the walls of Karak and watch the 7 departing knights disappear into the desert night. They carry with them not just gold and precious relics, but the hopes and dreams of everyone remaining behind. If they succeed in reaching safety, the order might survive. If they fail, then everything dies here in this forgotten fortress. "Regrets, brother?" William asks, joining you at the battlements. You consider the question seriously. Regrets about joining the order, about taking vows that have led you to this moment, about choosing duty over survival. "No," you say finally, and you are surprised to realize you mean it. No regrets. Whatever happens in the days to come, we will face it as Templars should, with faith, with courage, and with our souls clean before God. But as you speak these words, a messenger arrives at the gates with news that will change everything you thought you knew about your order, your faith, and yourself. The messenger who arrives at Kerak that night is not what any of you expected. Instead of a dusty pilgrim or a fleeing Christian, the man who demands entry is dressed in the robes of a Muslim scholar, his beard neatly trimmed and his eyes sharp with intelligence. More shocking still, he speaks perfect Latin and asks specifically for the Templar commander by name. "I bring word from Sultan Saladin himself," the man says as he stands before Commander Geoffrey in the great hall. You and the other knights surround him, hands resting on sword hilts. But there is something about his manner that suggests he comes in peace. "My name is Ibn Alathir, and I serve as advisor to the Sultan in matters of delicate negotiation." Geoffrey's weathered face shows no emotion. "Speak your message, scholar." The Sultan offers terms. Ibn Alathir says simply, "Surrender the fortress intact, along with all weapons and supplies." And he guarantees safe passage for all pilgrims and non-combatants to Christian lands. You Templar knights will be given the choice of death or conversion to Islam. Those who convert will be welcomed as honored warriors in the Sultan's service. The silence that follows is deafening. Around you, you can hear the sharp intake of breath from several brothers, the creak of leather as hands tighten on weapon grips. But it is Brother William who voices what you are all thinking. And if we refuse? Ibn Alathia's expression remains calm, almost sympathetic. Then the Sultan will take the fortress by storm, as is his right by the laws of war. The pilgrims will be sold into slavery, and all Templar knights will be executed. These terms are not negotiable, but the Sultan respects your courage and offers you until dawn to decide. After the Muslim scholar is escorted to quarters under guard, the knights gather in emergency council. The great hall of Karak suddenly feels smaller, the walls pressing in as 43 men struggle with an impossible choice. It is a trick, declares Brother Reynold de Chatillon, an older knight whose hatred of Muslims is legendary even among Templars. Saladin is known for his treachery. He will kill us all, regardless of what we choose. But what if it is not? Asks Brother Thomas quietly. What if this is our chance to save the pilgrims? Is our pride worth their lives? The debate rages for hours, voices rising and falling in the candlelit hall. Some argue for accepting the terms, reasoning that saving innocent lives justifies even the ultimate sacrifice of conversion. Others insist that betraying their faith, even to save others, is a sin that damns not just themselves, but the very souls they seek to protect. You find yourself strangely silent during these discussions. Something about the Muslim scholar troubles you, though you cannot name what it is. His manner was too confident, his knowledge of the fortress too precise. How did he know Geoffrey's name? How did he know exactly how many pilgrims were sheltering within the walls? Brother Edmund, Commander Geoffrey says suddenly, drawing you from your thoughts. You have been quiet tonight. What counsel do you offer? All eyes turn to you, and you feel the weight of their expectation. These men have fought beside you, bled with you, shared their hopes and fears during long nights on the walls. They deserve your honest thoughts, even if those thoughts are confused and uncertain. I believe we are asking the wrong question, you say slowly. We debate whether to trust Saladin's offer, but we have not asked why he makes such an offer at all. If he has the strength to take this fortress by storm, why negotiate? If he despises us as much as Brother Reynold suggests, why offer conversion rather than simple death? Several knights nod thoughtfully, but it is Ibn Alathir himself who provides the answer. The Muslim scholar steps from the shadows near the hall entrance, having apparently been listening to your entire debate. Because, Sir Knight, the Sultan has need of men like you, he says in his perfect Latin. Warriors who will die rather than betray their principles are rare in any faith. Such men can be trusted, even when they serve a different master. The hall erupts in shouts of anger and accusations of spying, but Geoffrey raises his hand for silence. You were not given permission to leave your quarters, scholar. Forgive me, Commander, but I wished to correct a dangerous misunderstanding. Ibn Alathir steps fully into the firelight, and you notice for the first time the sword calluses on his hands, the old scar along his jaw. This is no mere scholar. The Sultan does not offer conversion as an act of mercy. He offers it as recruitment. Your order has produced some of the finest warriors in the world. Now that your cause in the Holy Land is lost, he would have those warriors serve a different cause. And what cause would that be, you ask, though you suspect you already know the answer? The same cause you have always served, Sir Knight. The protection of the innocent, the preservation of learning, the maintenance of order in a chaotic world. Ibn Alathir's eyes meet yours directly. The Sultan has plans that extend far beyond the recapture of Jerusalem. He envisions a realm where Christian, Muslim, and Jew can coexist in peace, where knowledge flows freely between cultures, where trade and scholarship flourish under just rule. Such a vision requires men of proven honor, regardless of the faith they were born to. The implications of his words hit you like a crossbow bolt to the chest. This is not just about Korak, or even about the Holy Land. This is about the future of the world as you know it. And somehow, impossibly, you find yourself intrigued rather than outraged. You speak of betraying Christ himself, Brother Reynold snarls, his hand now openly gripping his sword hilt. No true Christian would even consider such blasphemy, would he not? Ibn Alathair asks calmly, "Tell me, Sir Knight, what has your faith accomplished in this land? How many innocents have died in the name of Christ? How many villages have been burned? How many families destroyed? All for the glory of your God." The Sultan offers an end to such senseless violence. Enough. Geoffrey's voice cuts through the rising tension like a blade. Whether this man speaks truth or lies, our choice remains the same. We are Templars. We serve Christ and his church. We do not abandon our vows for any earthly promise, no matter how appealing. But even as Geoffrey speaks these words of unwavering faith, you notice the doubt in some faces around the hall. These men have seen too much death, too much destruction carried out in the name of faith. The idea of serving peace instead of war, of protecting rather than conquering, clearly appeals to some of them. "I would speak with this scholar privately," you announce suddenly, surprising even yourself. "If we are to make this choice, we should understand exactly what is being offered." Geoffrey's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Brother Edmund, I forbid with respect. Commander, I am not proposing to convert. I am proposing to gather intelligence. If this man truly serves Saladin, then learning his plans serves our cause." You pause, then add the words that you know will convince Geoffrey. "And if he is lying, then we need to discover what trap is being laid for us." After a long moment, Geoffrey nods reluctantly. "Very well, but you will not meet with him alone. Brother William will accompany you, and you will report everything that is said." An hour later, you sit across from Ibn Alathair in the fortress chapel, the irony of the location not lost on you. William stands guard by the door while you and the Muslim scholar study each other in the candlelight. "You are not what I expected," Ibn Alathair says finally. "Most Templars are either fanatics or fools. You seem to be neither, and you are not what I expected either," you reply. "Most Muslim scholars do not carry sword scars or speak Latin with a Norman accent." Ibn Alathair laughs, a sound of genuine amusement. "Very observant, Sir Knight. I was born in Normandy, the son of a Christian merchant and a Muslim woman. I chose Islam, but I have not forgotten my Christian upbringing. That is why the Sultan sends me to negotiate with your kind. I understand both worlds. Tell me about this vision of Saladin's," you say, leaning forward. "This realm of peace and cooperation. How is it different from the empty promises every conqueror makes?" "Because the Sultan has already begun to make it reality," Ibn Alathair responds. "In Damascus, Christian merchants trade freely with Muslim and Jewish counterparts. In Cairo, scholars of all faiths collaborate in the Great Library. Even here in the Holy Land, where the wounds are deepest, the Sultan has shown mercy to defeated enemies who prove themselves honorable." He pauses, studying your face in the flickering candlelight. You doubt these words because you have been taught that Muslims are savages, incapable of honor or mercy. But tell me, Sir Knight, what mercy did your fellow Christians show when they took Jerusalem 90 years ago? What honor was displayed when they slaughtered every Muslim and Jew in the city, including women and children? The question hits you like a physical blow because you know the history he speaks of. Every Templar knows the story of the First Crusade's triumph, though few speak of the massacre that followed. It is one of those uncomfortable truths that faithful men learn to ignore in service of the greater good. That was regrettable, you say, finally, but it does not justify abandoning our faith. "I do not ask you to abandon your faith," Ibn Alathair replies. "I ask you to consider that perhaps God's will is not as simple as your priests have taught you. Perhaps the Almighty values mercy over conquest, peace over victory, understanding over blind obedience." "Those are dangerous words," William says from his position by the door. "Words that could be interpreted as heresy. and yet they are words that Christ himself spoke. Ibn al-Athir points out, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Is that not from your own scriptures? The conversation continues for another hour, ranging over theology, philosophy, and politics. Ibn al-Athir proves to be remarkably well educated, quoting not just the Quran but the Bible, Aristotle, and even some Roman military texts you recognize from your own studies. More disturbing still, many of his arguments make uncomfortable sense. When you finally return to the Great Hall to report to Geoffrey and the other knights, you find yourself in an impossible position. You cannot recommend accepting Saladin's offer without seeming to betray everything you have sworn to uphold. But you also cannot honestly say that the man is lying or that his vision is without merit. Well, Geoffrey asks as soon as you enter, "What is your assessment?" He believes what he says. You answer carefully. Whether that makes him a visionary or a fool, I cannot determine. But I do not think he intends treachery, at least not in the conventional sense. And the offer itself, this is the moment of truth, and you know that your next words may determine the fate of everyone in this fortress. Around you, 42 pairs of eyes watch and wait for your judgment. The offer is real, you say slowly, and it is more complex than we first understood. Saladin does not simply want our submission. He wants our active participation in building something new. Whether that something is worthy of our service, that is a question each man must answer for himself. The silence that follows your words stretches on for an eternity. Finally, it is broken by Brother Thomas, his young voice carrying across the hall with startling clarity. "I would hear more about this vision," he says quietly. "If there is truly a path to peace, should we not at least consider it?" "Thomas," Brother Reynolds' voice is sharp with shock and anger. "You speak of treason, do I?" Thomas replies, his voice growing stronger. "Or do I speak of seeking God's will, rather than blindly following the will of men who have never set foot in this land?" And with those words, the first crack appears in the unity of the Templar Knights of Karak. By morning, that crack will become a chasm that threatens to destroy not just the fortress, but the very soul of the order itself. Dawn comes too soon and not soon enough. You have spent the remaining hours of darkness in prayer and contemplation, seeking divine guidance for a decision that seems to have no righteous answer. Around you, the other knights have done the same, though their prayers have apparently led them to very different conclusions. When the community gathers in the chapel for the traditional morning service, the divisions are immediately apparent. 20 knights, led by Brother Reynold, stand rigidly at attention, their faces set with the familiar expression of men preparing for glorious death. But 23 others, including yourself and William, stand with less certainty, their eyes reflecting the doubts that have crept into their hearts during the long night. Commander Geoffrey notices the division immediately, his weathered face growing even more grave as he realizes that his brotherhood is fracturing at the moment when unity is most essential. "Brothers," he begins, his voice carrying across the small chapel with the authority of 3 decades of command. "Before we give our answer to the Sultan, I would hear from any man who wishes to speak. This decision affects us all, and all voices deserve hearing." Brother Thomas steps forward first, his young face pale but determined. "Commander, I have served this order faithfully for 7 years. I have never questioned my vows or wavered in my duty. But last night, as I prayed, I found myself remembering why I became a Templar in the first place." He pauses, gathering courage for words that will brand him either as a heretic or a prophet. "I joined because I believed we were called to protect the innocent and serve God's will. But what if God's will is not what we have assumed? What if the Almighty grows weary of wars fought in His name? What if He calls us to be peacemakers rather than warriors? Blasphemy." Brother Reynolds' voice cuts through the chapel like a sword stroke. "We are soldiers of Christ, not philosophers debating theology in comfortable monasteries. Our duty is clear, written in our rule and sealed with our sacred oaths." But is it clear? Brother Marcus de Beaumont asks unexpectedly. The older knight's question surprises everyone, as he has always been one of the most conservative and traditional members of the community. I have been thinking about our true purpose here, and I find myself troubled by doubts I have never experienced before. He walks slowly to the center of the chapel, his movements deliberate and careful. When we first came to this land, our mission was to protect pilgrims. Simple, clear, righteous. But over the decades, we have become something else. We are now princes of the church, holders of vast wealth, makers of kings and breakers of kingdoms. We have become what we once swore to renounce. The chapel falls silent as Marcus continues his unexpected confession. I own nothing personally, as our rule demands, but collectively, our order owns more gold than most kingdoms. We live in poverty individually, but we wield power that rivals the Pope himself. We have kept our vows in letter while violating them in spirit. Brother Marcus, Geoffrey warns, you approach dangerous ground. Do I, Commander, or do I finally speak truths we have all avoided? Marcus turns to face the assembled knights, his eyes bright with something between inspiration and desperation. This Muslim scholar offers us a chance to return to our original purpose, to protect rather than conquer, to serve rather than rule. Is that not worth considering? The debate that follows threatens to destroy the last remnants of discipline among the Templars of Kerak. Voices rise in anger and accusation. Old grievances surface, and the careful brotherhood built over years of shared hardship begins to crumble under the weight of impossible choices. You find yourself caught between competing loyalties and convictions. Part of you agrees with Reynold that abandoning your faith would be the ultimate betrayal of everything you have believed and fought for. But another part whispers that perhaps true faith requires the courage to question, to seek God's will even when it contradicts human authority. Enough. Geoffrey's voice finally cuts through the chaos, restored order through sheer force of personality. We will vote. Each knight will declare his choice publicly, and we will abide by the decision of the majority. But know this, brothers, whatever we choose together. There will be no division in our ranks when we face the enemy. The voting begins with the senior knights, each man stepping forward to declare his decision in a voice loud enough for all to hear. The pattern quickly becomes clear. The older knights, those who have served the order longest and risen highest in its hierarchy, choose death over conversion. But among the younger men, those who have seen the most recent violence and witnessed the growing corruption of the Crusader states, doubt and uncertainty reign. When your turn comes, you step forward with a heavy heart. Every eye in the chapel focuses on you, waiting for words that will help determine the fate of everyone present. I vote to accept Saladin's terms, you say clearly, and the gasp that runs through the chapel tells you that many expected a different answer. Not because I wish to abandon Christ, but because I believe Christ himself would choose mercy over martyrdom if it meant saving innocent lives. The voting continues, each decision adding weight to an already unbearable burden. When the final count is tallied, the result is closer than anyone expected. 24 knights choose conversion and service to Saladin. 19 choose death rather than betrayal of their faith. Commander Geoffrey stares at the tally in stunned silence for a long moment before speaking. The decision is made, he says finally. We will accept the Sultan's terms. But let no man think this choice comes without cost. We pay for these lives with our souls, and only God can judge whether the price is worth paying. The arrangements are made quickly. Ibn al-Laythair is summoned and informed of the decision, though his reaction suggests he is not entirely surprised by the outcome. The fortress gates are opened, and Saladin's forces enter Kerak without resistance. The Sultan himself arrives 3 days later, and you are struck by how different he is from the monster depicted in Christian propaganda. Saladin is a man of middle years, his beard touched with grey, his manner more that of a scholar than a conqueror. When he speaks with the converted Templars, his words carry the weight of genuine respect for their sacrifice. I do not ask you to betray your conscience, he tells the assembled group in his accented but fluent Latin. I ask only that you serve justice and mercy rather than conquest and greed. The God you worship and the God I worship both value these things above the pride of princes. But even as you listen to these reasonable words, a part of you wonders what you have truly chosen. Have you saved lives and served a greater good, or have you simply traded one master for another? Have you followed Christ's example of self-sacrifice, or have you betrayed everything he stood for? The answer comes sooner than expected, and from a source that shocks everyone present. As the former Templars prepare to leave Karak for Damascus, where they will begin their new service, Brother William approaches you with news that changes everything. Edmund, he says quietly, his face pale with shock, I have discovered something about our friend Ibn Alethea, something that suggests we have been deceived in ways we never imagined. What do you mean? William glances around to ensure they are not overheard, then leans closer. I was helping to inventory the fortress supplies for transfer to Saladin's forces when I noticed something strange. Several items were missing from our treasury, not gold or jewels, but documents. Specific documents related to our banking operations and our connections with European nobles. The implications hit you like a physical blow. You think Ibn Alethea took them. I think Ibn Alethea knew exactly what to look for and where to find it, William replies grimly. I think this entire negotiation was designed not just to capture the fortress, but to capture our secrets. The conversion offer was simply a way to gain our cooperation voluntarily. As you process this information, pieces of a larger puzzle begin to fall into place. Ibn Alethea's perfect knowledge of the fortress layout, his familiarity with Templar hierarchy and customs, his ability to speak to each knight's specific doubts and vulnerabilities. This was not a negotiation. This was a carefully planned operation to neutralize the Templars as a threat, while gaining access to their intelligence network. What do we do? William asks, desperately. If you are right, then we have not just betrayed our faith, we have betrayed our entire order. Before you can answer, a commotion erupts near the fortress gates. Shouts in Arabic echo across the courtyard, followed by the unmistakable sounds of steel on steel. But these are not the sounds of battle. These are the sounds of execution. You and William rush toward the disturbance, joining a crowd of Christian pilgrims and Muslim soldiers gathered around the main gate. What you see there destroys whatever hope you had that your choice might have been the right one. Brother Reynold the Chatelain and the 18 other knights who chose death over conversion are kneeling in a line before the gate, their hands bound behind their backs. Standing over them with drawn swords are Muslim executioners, waiting for Saladin's command. But it is not Saladin who gives the order. It is Ibn Alethea, his scholar's robes now replaced with the practical clothing of a military commander. His voice carries clearly across the courtyard as he addresses the condemned men. You have chosen death over dishonor, he says in his perfect Latin. The Sultan respects this choice and grants you the warrior's death you seek, but know that your sacrifice serves his purposes as well as your own. Your deaths will be reported throughout Christendom as proof of Muslim cruelty, turning opinion against any future crusades. Your martyrdom becomes a weapon in our hands. The executions are swift and efficient, each knight meeting his end with the quiet dignity that has always marked the Templar way. But as you watch your brothers die, you realize that you have been outmaneuvered by an enemy far more sophisticated than you ever imagined. This was always the plan, you whisper to William as the last body falls. Whether we chose conversion or death, the result serves Saladin's purposes. The converts provide him with trained warriors and valuable intelligence. The martyrs provide him with propaganda to discourage future Christian military adventures. Then we are all betrayed, William replies heavily. Those who chose death and those who chose life. None of us chose wisely because none of us understood the true nature of the game being played. But even as despair threatens to overwhelm you, A new voice cuts through the chaos. It comes from an unexpected source, one of the pilgrims you had sworn to protect, Lady Catherine de Montpellier, a French noblewoman who had been travelling to Jerusalem with her young daughter, steps forward from the crowd of onlookers. "Sir Knights," she says, in a voice that carries, despite its feminine softness, "I would speak with you." Ibn Alathea turns toward her with mild interest. "What would you say, my lady?" "I would say that you underestimate the men you seek to manipulate," Catherine replies with surprising steel in her voice. "These Templars may have been outmaneuvered in your political game, but they have not been broken. And you may find that even pawns can become dangerous when they understand the true nature of the board." There is something in her tone that makes you look at her more carefully. Lady Catherine is perhaps 30 years old, with the bearing of nobility, but something else as well, something that reminds you of the way seasoned warriors carry themselves, alert and ready for action, even in moments of apparent calm. Ibn Alathea apparently notices the same thing, because his casual demeanor sharpens into focused attention. "You speak boldly for a woman traveling under my protection, Lady Catherine. Perhaps too boldly. Perhaps," she agrees with a slight smile. "But then again, I am not exactly what I appear to be, just as you are not exactly what you appear to be to these good knights." The tension in the courtyard suddenly becomes palpable, as every person present realizes they are witnessing something more complex than a simple exchange between conqueror and conquered. You find yourself studying Lady Catherine with new eyes, noting details you had missed before. The calluses on her hands that suggest weapons training, the way she positions herself for maximum mobility despite her restrictive feminine clothing, the confidence with which she addresses armed men who could kill her without consequence. "Who are you?" you ask quietly, though part of you already suspects the answer will change everything once again. "I am someone who has been watching the Templars for a very long time," Catherine replies without taking her eyes off Ibn Alathea. "Someone who represents interests that extend far beyond this fortress or even this war. Someone who has been waiting for exactly this moment to reveal herself." She reaches beneath her pilgrim's cloak and produces a small object that gleams dully in the morning sunlight. It is a ring, but not just any ring, even from a distance. You can see the distinctive octagonal seal that marks it as belonging to the inner circle of the Templar hierarchy. But this particular ring carries additional markings you have never seen before, symbols that seem to dance and shift in the light. "Impossible," breathes Commander Geoffrey, who has remained silent throughout the morning's revelations. "That ring was lost decades ago, when Grand Master Bertrand de Blancqueford disappeared during his mission to Constantinople." "Lost," Catherine laughs, and the sound carries both amusement and menace. "Or carefully preserved for a time when it would be needed most. My lords, you have been so focused on the obvious enemies that you have failed to notice the hidden allies working to preserve what truly matters." Ibn Alathea's hand moves toward his sword, but Catherine's voice stops him with a single word spoken in Arabic. Whatever she says causes his face to go pale beneath his carefully maintained composure. "Yes," she continues in Latin for the benefit of the assembled Templars, "I speak your language as well as you speak ours. And I know things about you that would surprise even Sultan Saladin. Things about your true parentage, your real mission here, and the price that certain parties have paid to ensure your success." The Muslim commander's mask of control finally cracks completely. "Who sent you?" he demands in a voice tight with barely controlled panic. "The same people who sent your father to Normandy 30 years ago," Catherine replies calmly. "The same people who arranged for a promising young scholar to catch the Sultan's attention and rise quickly in his service. The same people who have been playing a much longer game than any of you suspected." As you listen to this exchange, your mind races to process the implications. If Catherine speaks the truth, then the events of the past few days are part of a conspiracy that extends far beyond the immediate conflict between Christians and Muslims in the Holy Land. But what could be the purpose of such an elaborate deception? The answer comes from an unexpected source, your own memory of seemingly unimportant details from your years of service. Conversations overheard in corridor shadows, documents glimpsed but not fully understood, patterns of behavior among the Templar leadership that never quite made sense until now. The treasure, you say suddenly, causing every head to turn toward you. This was never about converting Templars or gaining military intelligence. This was about the treasure that left here 3 nights ago. Catherine nods approvingly. Very good, Sir Edmund. Please continue. The 7 knights who departed with the gold and relics. You continue, your voice growing stronger as the pieces fall into place. They were not chosen randomly. They were specifically selected because they carried certain knowledge, certain documents, certain capabilities that someone very much wanted to acquire. But who? William asks desperately. Who has the power to manipulate both Christian and Muslim forces on such a scale? Before Catherine can answer, a new voice joins the conversation. It comes from above, from the walls of the fortress, where a figure in familiar white robes stands silhouetted against the morning sky. That would be us, Brother William, the voice calls down, and you recognize it with a shock that goes through you like cold steel. It is Brother Anselm de Bruges, one of the 7 knights who supposedly escaped 3 nights ago. Though I fear the truth is somewhat more complex than any of you have yet imagined. As Anselm descends to the courtyard, accompanied by the other 6 escaped Templars, the final pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place. But the picture they form is so extraordinary that you struggle to believe it, even as the evidence surrounds you. Brothers, Anselm says, as he approaches the group of stunned knights, allow me to introduce you to the true purpose of our order, not the public mission of protecting pilgrims or defending the Holy Land, but the secret mission that has guided our actions since the very day Hugo de Payens first set foot in Jerusalem nearly 70 years ago. He gestures toward Catherine, who has now thrown back her pilgrim's hood to reveal not the simple arrangement of a traveling noblewoman, but the complex braided pattern that marks the highest ranks of medieval scholarship. Lady Catherine de Montpellier is indeed traveling to the Holy Land, Anselm continues, but not as a pilgrim. She is one of the guardians, the secret scholars who have preserved certain knowledge since the fall of the Western Roman Empire, knowledge that the Church has deemed too dangerous for common men to possess, but too valuable to destroy entirely. What knowledge, you ask, though you are beginning to suspect that you do not really want to know the answer. The knowledge of what lies beneath the Temple of Solomon, Catherine replies quietly. The knowledge of why our order was truly founded, and why certain powers have spent 7 decades maneuvering to gain control of what we guard. As she speaks, she produces from beneath her robes a scroll case made of materials you do not recognize. The metal seems to shift and flow in the light, and the symbols carved into its surface hurt your eyes to look at directly. This fortress, like every major Templar stronghold, was built according to specific mathematical principles. She continues, principles derived from documents found beneath the temple, mount during the early years of our order, documents that reveal the location of certain items left behind by civilizations far older than Rome or Jerusalem. The silence that follows her words is broken only by the sound of Ibn Alathir's sharp intake of breath. Whatever game he thought he was playing, it is clear that he has stumbled into something far beyond his understanding or control. The Ark, he whispers, in a voice filled with equal parts awe and terror. You speak of the Ark of the Covenant. Among other things, Catherine agrees, though the Ark is perhaps the least dangerous of the items in question. No, what concerns the Guardians is the possibility of certain other relics falling into the wrong hands. Relics that could shift the balance of power not just between Christian and Muslim, but between humanity and older forces that still influence our world. As you process these revelations, you realize that your entire understanding of your life as a Templar has been built on foundations of deception. The vows you took, the battles you fought, The brothers who died beside you, all of it was orchestrated to serve a purpose you never understood and were never meant to understand. But even as this realization fills you with anger and betrayal, you find yourself asking a different question. If the Templars truly guard such dangerous secrets, if they really stand between humanity and ancient evils, then perhaps the deception was justified. Perhaps some truths are too dangerous for honest men to bear. What happens now? You ask Catherine, surprised by how calm your own voice sounds. What happens to those of us who have learned what we were never meant to know? Her answer chills you to the bone, not because it is cruel, but because it is delivered with the matter-of-fact tone of someone describing the weather. Now, Sir Edmund, you face the same choice that has confronted every Templar who has learned the full truth about our order. You can join the inner circle and spend the rest of your life guarding secrets that must never be revealed. Or you can choose to forget what you have learned here through methods that are permanent and irreversible. As the implications of her words sink in, you realize that the impossible choice you faced regarding Saladin's offer was nothing compared to the choice that now confronts you. But before you can respond, the sound of distant horns echoes across the desert, announcing the arrival of forces that will make all previous revelations seem simple by comparison. The horns that echo across the desert carry a sound you have never heard before, neither Christian nor Muslim, but something older and more primal. As the dust clouds on the horizon grow larger, you begin to make out shapes that defy easy explanation. The approaching force moves with the discipline of a military unit, but their banners bear symbols that seem to shift and writhe in the desert heat. The Hashashin, Ibn al-Athir breathes, and for the first time since you met him, genuine fear colors his voice. But they should not be here. The agreement was that they would remain neutral as long as certain conditions were met. Catherine interrupts sharply. Conditions that have apparently been violated by recent events. You turn to her with growing alarm. What are the I have heard whispers of assassins in the mountains, but they are far more than assassins, Catherine replies, her eyes never leaving the approaching dust cloud. They are the guardians of a different secret, one that intersects with ours in ways that have kept an uneasy peace for decades. If they are here, it means someone has broken the ancient accords. Brother Anselm steps forward, his weathered face grim with understanding. The relics, he says quietly. Someone has attempted to move the relics without proper authorization. The Hashashin have come to prevent a catastrophe that could affect both our orders. As the mysterious force draws closer, you begin to make out individual figures. They are mounted on horses, but their movement across the desert sand seems almost unnaturally fluid. Their leader rides slightly ahead of the others, and even at a distance, there is something about his bearing that suggests both nobility and danger. Who leads them, you ask, though part of you dreads the answer. Sinan, Ibn Salman, Ibn Muhammad, Catherine replies, known to your people as the Old Man of the Mountain. He is the current leader of the Hashashin, and one of the few men in this world who knows the full truth about what lies beneath the Temple of Solomon. The name sends a chill through every person present. Even among the Templars, stories of the Old Man of the Mountain are told in whispers. He is said to be a sorcerer who commands assassins with supernatural abilities, a man who has lived far longer than any mortal should, a guardian of secrets that predate both Christianity and Islam. What does he want? William asks, his hand instinctively moving to his sword hilt. Justice, comes a voice from behind you, and you turn to see that the Hashashin leader has somehow crossed the remaining distance without anyone noticing his approach. Sinan ibn Salman stands in the courtyard of Kurak, as if he has always been there, his presence commanding immediate attention from every person present. He is not what you expected. Instead of the ancient sorcerer of legend, he appears to be a man of perhaps 40 years, with intelligent eyes and the bearing of a scholar rather than an assassin. But there is something about him that makes you acutely aware of the danger he represents. a sense that beneath his calm exterior lies power beyond your comprehension. Justice for whom? Saladin demands, stepping forward with the authority of a sultan. I have violated no agreement with your order, have you not? Sinan asks mildly, his gaze shifting to Ibn Alathia. Your agent there has exceeded his authority in ways that threaten the stability of arrangements that have kept the peace for generations. The guardianship of certain relics is not a matter for political manipulation. Ibn Alathia's face goes pale as he realizes the implications. Master Sinan, I assure you that my actions were undertaken solely to serve the Sultan's interests in this region. I had no knowledge of any greater significance. Ignorance is not an excuse when dealing with forces that could destroy cities. Sinan interrupts, his voice carrying a note of steel that silences all further protest. The scroll case that now rests in the possession of Lady Catherine contains information that your superiors were specifically warned never to seek. By attempting to acquire it through deception and manipulation, you have broken accords that have protected this region for decades. You find yourself looking at Catherine with new understanding. The scroll case she revealed earlier is not just a repository of ancient knowledge. It is something that multiple secret organizations have fought to control. Something so dangerous that its very existence is hidden from the world. What is in that case? You ask directly, no longer willing to accept partial truths and cryptic references. Catherine exchanges glances with both Sinan and Brother Anselm before answering. Maps, she says simply. Maps to locations where certain items were hidden after the fall of the Second Temple. Items that were deemed too dangerous to remain in Jerusalem, but too important to destroy. The copper scroll, Sinan adds, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. One of the Dead Sea Scrolls, thought lost for over 1,000 years. It contains precise directions to 64 locations throughout the Holy Land where the most sacred and dangerous artifacts of the ancient world were concealed. The implications hit you like a physical blow. If such a document exists, and if it has fallen into the wrong hands, then the consequences could extend far beyond the current conflict between Christians and Muslims. Ancient artifacts of unknown power, scattered across a region already torn by war, could tip the balance of world power in ways that no one could predict or control. But why do the Templars guard this knowledge, you ask, struggling to understand your own role in these vast conspiracies? Why not the Church directly, or the kings of Christendom? Because, Brother Anselm answers heavily, the Church and the kings of Christendom cannot be trusted with such power. History has shown us repeatedly that those who wield temporal authority will use any weapon available to them, regardless of the consequences. The Templars were created as a buffer, a group of men sworn to poverty and obedience, who could guard these secrets without being tempted to use them for personal gain. And the Hashashin, William asks, his soldier's mind focusing on the practical questions of alliance and enmity. We serve the same purpose from a different perspective, Sinan explains. Where the Templars guard through military might and institutional authority, we guard through secrecy and selective action. Between us, we have maintained a balance that has prevented any single faction from gaining access to the full collection of artifacts. You begin to understand the scope of the conspiracy that has shaped your entire adult life. The Crusades themselves, the rise and fall of the various military orders, the complex political relationships between Christian and Muslim rulers, all of it has been influenced by the need to protect secrets that could reshape the world. But now that balance is threatened, you say, the pieces finally falling into place. Someone has broken the agreements, and the artifacts are at risk. Precisely, Catherine confirms, which is why we must act quickly to prevent a catastrophe that could affect every person in this region and beyond. As if summoned by her words, a new commotion erupts near the fortress gates. A group of riders approaches at full gallop, their horses lathered with sweat and their banners streaming in the desert wind. But these are not the measured movements of the Hashashin or the disciplined advance of Saladin's forces. These riders move with the desperate urgency of men fleeing from something terrible. Christian knights, you observe, recognizing the armor and weaponry even at a distance, but not Templars, Hospitallers, perhaps, or Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. The lead rider reaches the courtyard and dismounts without ceremony, his face wild with panic and exhaustion. "My lords," he gasps, addressing the assembled leaders without regard for the complex political situation he has stumbled into. "I bring word from Jerusalem, the city. The city is in chaos. Something has been awakened beneath the Temple Mount, something that should have remained buried." The silence that follows his words is deafening. Every person present understands immediately that their worst fears have been realized. Someone has found one of the ancient caches, and whatever they have discovered has already begun to manifest its power. "Describe what you have seen," Sinan commands, his voice carrying an authority that transcends religious or political boundaries. "Lights in the sky above the Temple Mount," the knight reports, his voice shaking with remembered terror. "Lights that move with purpose, that seem to respond to human presence. And sounds like nothing I have ever heard, coming from beneath the ancient foundations. The patriarch has declared the area forbidden, but people are fleeing the city in panic." Catherine removes the scroll case from beneath her robes and holds it up for all to see. "This contains the locations of 63 other caches," she says grimly. "If one has been breached, then others may follow. We must reach Jerusalem immediately and attempt to contain whatever has been released." "Contain it? How?" you ask, though you suspect you do not want to know the answer. "By any means necessary," Sinan replies, his calm demeanor not quite concealing the urgency beneath. "Even if it means destroying the Temple Mount itself to prevent the spread of whatever ancient power has been awakened." As the full scope of the crisis becomes clear, you realize that your comfortable world of clearly defined enemies and righteous causes has been shattered forever. The choice you face now is not between Christian and Muslim, or between loyalty and betrayal, but between humanity and forces that predate all human civilization. "What do you need from us?" you ask, speaking for the assembled Templars who have listened to these revelations in stunned silence. "Everything," Catherine replies simply. "Your swords, your knowledge, your willingness to die for something greater than any earthly kingdom. Because if we fail, the consequences will be felt not just in this generation, but for centuries to come." As preparations begin for the desperate journey to Jerusalem, you find yourself reflecting on the strange turns your life has taken. This morning you woke as a simple knight facing a choice between faith and survival. Now you stand at the center of a conspiracy that spans continents and centuries, faced with the possibility that the fate of the world itself may rest in the hands of a small group of men and women who have dedicated their lives to guarding secrets that most people could never imagine. But even as you prepare for what may be your final mission, a nagging doubt continues to trouble your mind. If the Templars and the Hashishin have successfully guarded these secrets for so long, how did someone manage to breach one of the caches now? Who has the knowledge and power to find and open what was meant to remain hidden forever? The answer, when it comes, will prove to be more shocking than anything you have yet discovered about the true nature of your order and your world. The journey to Jerusalem takes 3 days of hard riding across terrain that grows more ominous with each passing mile. The normal bustle of pilgrim traffic has disappeared entirely, replaced by a steady stream of refugees fleeing the holy city with terror written on their faces. When you question some of these fleeing civilians, their accounts vary wildly, but certain details remain consistent: lights in the sky, sounds from beneath the earth, and a growing sense that something fundamental about the world has changed. On the second day of travel, you encounter something that stops your small column in its tracks. A group of Hospitaller knights, men you recognize from previous encounters, sit motionless on their horses in the middle of the road. They appear to be alive and uninjured, but they do not respond to any greeting or challenge. Their eyes stare straight ahead, fixed on some distant point that only they can see. Do not approach them, Serene warns as you prepare to ride forward. They have been touched by the influence. To get too close risks the same fate. What influence? You demand, though you can already feel something unsettling about the silent nights. There is a quality to their stillness that seems unnatural, as if they have been frozen in time rather than simply remaining motionless. The influence of whatever has been awakened, Catherine explains, her voice tight with concern. Some of the artifacts in the caches are not merely objects of power. They are conduits for intelligences that existed before human civilization. When improperly handled, they can affect the minds of those nearby. As you ride carefully around the motionless hospitalers, you notice that their horses are equally still, equally unresponsive. Whatever has affected the knights has also affected their mounts, creating an island of perfect stillness in the midst of the chaos that surrounds Jerusalem. How many people could be affected? William asks, his practical mind immediately grasping the implications. Potentially thousands, Serene replies grimly, which is why we must reach the source and attempt to contain it before the influence spreads further. The third day brings you within sight of Jerusalem, and what you see there confirms your worst fears. The city that has been the center of Christian pilgrimage for centuries is now wreathed in an aurora of unnatural light. Streamers of color dance across the sky in patterns that hurt to look at directly, while a low humming sound seems to emanate from the very stones of the ancient walls. The Temple Mount, Catherine says, pointing toward the source of the disturbance. Whatever has been awakened lies directly beneath the dome of the rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This complicates matters considerably. Indeed, it does. The Temple Mount is the third holiest site in Islam, and any attempt to damage or destroy it will be seen as an act of war by every Muslim ruler from Damascus to Cairo. But leaving the ancient influence unchecked could result in consequences far worse than any military conflict. There may be another way, you suggest, as the group pauses on a hilltop overlooking the city. If the problem lies beneath the surface, perhaps we can reach it through the ancient tunnels and chambers without damaging the structures above. Sinan nods approvingly. The young knight shows wisdom. There are indeed ways to reach the deepest chambers without disturbing the sacred sites above, but the journey will be dangerous in ways that conventional warfare cannot prepare you for. As you approach the city gates, you are surprised to find them unguarded. The usual bustle of merchants, pilgrims, and soldiers has been replaced by an eerie quiet broken only by the strange humming that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. The few people you encounter move with the same mechanical precision as the Hospitaller Knights, their eyes vacant and their movements unnaturally coordinated. Stay close together, Catherine warns as you enter the city. The influence grows stronger the nearer we get to the source. If anyone begins to feel ... unusual, they must speak immediately. The streets of Jerusalem lead upward toward the Temple Mount through a maze of narrow passages and ancient stone buildings. Normally these streets would be filled with the sounds of daily life, merchants calling their wares, children playing, the chatter of pilgrims discussing their spiritual journeys. Now they echo only with the sound of your horse's hooves and the ever-present humming that seems to vibrate through the very stones. As you climb higher, you begin to notice changes in the architecture itself. The familiar stonework of Jerusalem's buildings seems to be shifting subtly, as if the ancient masonry is rearranging itself according to some pattern that follows no earthly geometry. Windows appear where none existed before, while doorways that should lead to familiar courtyards now open onto spaces that seem to extend far beyond the physical dimensions of the buildings. The influence is not just affecting minds, you observe with growing alarm. It is affecting reality itself. The artifacts were created by intelligences that exist partially outside our normal understanding of space and time. Sinon explains as you continue your ascent. When they are activated, they can alter the fundamental nature of the area around them. This is why they were hidden so carefully, and why they must be contained before the changes become permanent. Near the entrance to the Temple Mount, you encounter the first sign of organized resistance to the strange influence. A group of Muslim scholars and Christian monks have established a prayer circle, their voices raised in continuous recitation of sacred texts. The air around them shimmers with a different kind of energy, one that seems to push back against the alien influence radiating from the ancient chambers below. They are holding a barrier, Catherine explains. Their combined faith creates a kind of spiritual firewall that slows the spread of the influence. But it is a temporary measure at best. Eventually, their strength will fail, and the influence will overcome them, as it has overcome so many others. Brother Anselm dismounts and approaches the prayer circle. After a brief conversation with the leaders, he returns with a grim expression. They have been maintaining this barrier for 2 days without rest. Some of their members have already succumbed to exhaustion, and the remainder can hold out for perhaps 6 more hours at most. The pressure of time weighs heavily on all of you as you make final preparations for the descent into the ancient chambers. The entrance Sinan has chosen is hidden beneath a seemingly ordinary building near the western wall of the Temple Mount, a structure that appears to be a simple storage facility, but conceals access to tunnels that predate even the Second Temple. Before we descend, Catherine says, gathering the group around her, there are certain precautions we must take. The artifacts we are likely to encounter below were designed to influence human consciousness in specific ways. Some of you may see visions, others may hear voices, and all of you will be tempted to touch or handle objects that seem beautiful or appealing. Under no circumstances should you interact with anything we find without explicit permission from Sinan or myself. She produces from her travel pack a series of small metal amulets, each inscribed with symbols that seem to shift and change as you look at them. These will provide some protection against the influence, but they are not foolproof. Your own strength of will and clarity of purpose will be your best defense. As you don the protective amulet, you feel a subtle change in your perception. The strange humming that has been constant since entering the city fades to a more manageable level, and the disorienting architectural changes seem less pronounced. But underneath this relief, you sense something else, a growing awareness that you are about to enter a realm where the normal rules of reality no longer apply. The entrance to the tunnels is concealed behind a false wall in the basement of the storage building. Sinan produces a key unlike any you have ever seen, its metal seeming to flow like liquid as he inserts it into a lock that appears to be made of the same malleable material. The wall slides aside silently, revealing a stairway that descends into darkness. The tunnels were carved by the original builders of the temple, Sinan explains as you begin the descent. They knew that certain artifacts would need to be hidden away from the main structure, but they also knew that access might be required in times of crisis. What they did not anticipate was that the artifacts themselves might corrupt the very stones around them. The stairs lead down through layers of history, each level representing a different period of Jerusalem's past. You pass through chambers filled with artifacts from the Crusader period, then deeper into rooms that date to the Islamic conquest, and finally into the deepest levels that contain remnants of the original Jewish temple. But as you descend further, the architecture becomes increasingly alien, following patterns that seem to predate human civilization entirely. This is as far as most people have ever gone, Catherine says as you reach a vast chamber carved from the living rock. Beyond this point, the tunnels enter the original cache chambers, where items were hidden that the ancient priests deemed too dangerous for human contact. The chamber before you is filled with a soft, pulsing light that seems to come from the walls themselves. Strange symbols cover every surface, their meanings lost to time but their power still clearly evident. In the center of the chamber stands a circular platform surrounded by 7 pillars, each pillar topped with a different geometric shape that seems to exist in more than 3 dimensions. The Seal of Solomon, William breathes, recognizing the pattern from ancient texts. This is where the legendary king bound the demons and spirits that threatened his kingdom. Not demons, Sinan corrects quietly. Intelligences from outside our reality, beings of such alien nature that they appeared demonic to ancient peoples. Solomon did not bind them. He negotiated with them, creating a treaty that has lasted for nearly 3,000 years. As you stare at the ancient seal, you begin to understand the true scope of what you are facing. This is not simply a matter of containing a dangerous artifact. This is about maintaining a balance between humanity and forces that exist beyond human comprehension. A balance that has kept the world stable for millennia. The seal is weakening, Catherine observes, her voice tight with concern. Someone has been tampering with the binding mechanisms. If it fails completely, the treaty will be broken, and the consequences will be catastrophic. Before anyone can respond, a sound echoes through the chamber that freezes the blood in your veins. It is not quite a voice, and not quite music, but something that seems to speak directly to the deepest parts of your mind. The words, if they can be called words, carry meanings that no human language can express, but their intent is clear. Something ancient and powerful has awakened, and it is not pleased with the current state of affairs. We are too late, Sinan says quietly. The seal has already been breached. Whatever happens next, we must be prepared for the possibility that the world as we know it is about to change forever. As the alien voice continues to resonate through the chamber, you realize that your journey as a Templar knight has led you to a moment that will define not just your own fate, but the fate of all humanity. The choice you must make now goes beyond questions of faith or loyalty. It is a choice between preserving the familiar world of human conflict and embracing a new reality, where humanity must coexist with intelligences that dwarf human understanding. The weight of that choice presses down upon you as the ancient chamber fills with light that has not been seen for 3,000 years, and you prepare to face whatever emerges from the depths of history to challenge the world you thought you knew. The light that fills the chamber is not merely illumination, is revelation. As the ancient radiance washes over you, suddenly you can see the chamber not as it appears to human eyes, but as it truly is, a nexus point where multiple realities intersect, a carefully constructed interface between the world of humanity and realms that exist beyond human comprehension. The 7 pillars that surround the Seal of Solomon are not merely decorative structures, but active conduits, channels through which communication flows between vastly different forms of consciousness. The geometric shapes at their tops pulse with patterns that your newly expanded perception recognizes as a form of mathematics so advanced that it transcends physical reality itself. Can you understand what you are seeing? Catherine asks, her voice seeming to come from very far away despite her proximity. The amulets are opening your consciousness to perceptions that normally require years of training to achieve safely. You nod, though the gesture feels strange in this place where normal physical laws seem to be suggestions rather than absolutes. I see, ... connections, patterns. This chamber is like a vast instrument, isn't it? Built to maintain harmony between different types of existence. Precisely, Sinan confirms, his form seeming to flicker between his normal appearance and something that suggests far greater age and wisdom than his physical form would indicate. For 3 millennia, this chamber has served as a diplomatic embassy, a place where agreements could be made and maintained between humanity and the entities that inhabit the spaces between worlds. As your enhanced perception continues to expand, you begin to discern the presence of other beings in the chamber. They do not possess physical forms in any conventional sense, but rather exist as patterns of pure consciousness, geometries of thought and will that interact with reality in ways that make mockery of human understanding of possibility. One of these presences focuses its attention on you, and suddenly your mind is filled with concepts and images that stretch your sanity to its limits. You see the true history of the world, not as a series of human events, but as a vast collaboration between multiple forms of intelligence. Civilizations that rose and fell before humanity learned to use fire. Technologies that operated according to principles that would not be discovered by human science for thousands of years. And always, always, the careful maintenance of balance that kept the various forces of reality in harmony. The Templars, you whisper as understanding floods through you. We were never really a military order at all, were we? We were caretakers, chosen and trained to maintain the ancient agreements when the original negotiators could no longer fulfill their roles. Every major event in human history has been influenced by the need to maintain the balance, Catherine confirms. The rise and fall of empires, the spread of religions, the development of technologies, all of it has been guided by those who understood the true nature of reality and the importance of keeping certain forces in check. But even as you begin to grasp the scope of the conspiracy that has shaped all of human history, you realize that something has gone terribly wrong. The patterns of light and consciousness that should be flowing smoothly through the chamber are chaotic, disrupted by some fundamental disturbance in the ancient equilibrium. What has happened here, you ask? Though part of you dreads the answer, the response comes not from your human companions, but from one of the alien intelligences directly. Information flows into your mind with the force of a waterfall, carrying with it the bitter taste of betrayal and the sharp edge of impending catastrophe. Someone has broken the ancient accords. Someone with knowledge of the true nature of the Templar mission has deliberately sabotaged the mechanisms that maintain the balance between realities. The 7 pillars that should be functioning as conduits for peaceful communication have been corrupted, turned into weapons that could tear apart the fabric of reality itself. But who? William asks, his voice strained with the effort of processing revelations that challenge every assumption he has ever held about the nature of existence. Who would have both the knowledge and the power to do such a thing? The answer comes from an unexpected source, Brother Anselm, whose familiar form begins to shift and change as you watch. The weathered face of the veteran Templar melts away like wax, revealing features that are both ancient and ageless, marked by the weight of centuries but untouched by the decay of time. I would, he says, simply, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonate with the alien mathematics that govern the chamber. And in fact, I have. The shock of this revelation hits you like a physical blow. Brother Anselm, the man who inducted you into the inner mysteries of the Templar order, who taught you the true purpose of your vows, who seemed to represent everything noble and wise about your brotherhood. He is the architect of the catastrophe that threatens to destroy the ancient balance. Why, you whisper, the single word carrying the weight of all your shattered assumptions and betrayed trust. Because the balance has become a prison, Anselm replies, his transformed features expressing a pain that seems to encompass centuries of accumulated suffering. For 3,000 years, humanity has been kept in ignorance of its true potential, confined to a narrow band of reality, while vast realms of possibility remained forever beyond reach. The entities that negotiated the original agreements have grown comfortable with their role as invisible rulers, content to manipulate human development from the shadows. He gestures toward the alien presences that still fill the chamber, their forms of pure consciousness pulsing with what you now recognize as anger and concern. They claim to be protecting humanity from forces too dangerous to comprehend, but they are really protecting themselves from competition. Humanity is on the verge of an evolutionary leap that would make us their equals, and they will do anything to prevent that transformation. Even if you are right, Catherine argues, her voice carrying the authority of someone who has spent lifetimes studying these mysteries. The price of breaking the balance will be the destruction of everything we hold dear. Without the accords, reality itself will become unstable. Entire civilizations could be swept away by forces they cannot even perceive, much less control. Some prices are worth paying. Anselm replies, with the cold certainty of a man who has already committed himself to an irreversible course of action. Humanity deserves the chance to take its place among the powers that shape reality, even if that chance comes with terrible risks. As the debate continues, you find yourself caught between competing visions of humanity's future. On one side stands the ancient stability of the current system, maintained by secret agreements and hidden manipulations, but providing a relatively safe environment for human development. On the other side lies the promise of unlimited potential, the possibility that humanity could transcend its current limitations and become something greater than it has ever been. But as you struggle with these philosophical questions, a more immediate crisis demands your attention. The damage that Anselm has inflicted on the chamber's mechanisms is spreading, causing reality itself to become unstable. The walls of stone around you are beginning to phase in and out of existence, while the air itself seems to be developing tears through which you can glimpse other dimensions entirely. We must act quickly, Sinon warns, his form now flickering between human appearance and something that suggests his true nature as a guardian of realities beyond normal perception. If the cascade failure reaches the other cache sites, the entire Middle East will become a zone of chaotic space-time where the normal laws of physics no longer apply. How do we stop it, you ask, though you suspect the answer will require sacrifices that none of you are prepared to make. Someone must take Anselm's place as the focal point of the chamber's mechanisms, Catherine replies grimly. Someone must bind themselves to the seal of Solomon and become a living conduit for the forces that maintain the balance. It is a role that requires the complete surrender of individual identity and the prerequisite acceptance of responsibility for maintaining harmony between realities for as long as the current age of the world endures. The implications of her words settle over you like a shroud. Whoever accepts this role will cease to exist as a normal human being, becoming instead a living component of the cosmic machinery that keeps reality stable. It is the ultimate sacrifice, the complete surrender of personal desires and individual will in service of a greater good. I will do it, you say quietly, surprised by the certainty in your own voice. I have spent my entire adult life serving causes that I understood only partially. At least now I can serve a cause whose full importance I finally comprehend. Edmund, no, William protests, desperately. There must be another way. We cannot lose you to this cosmic responsibility. You will not lose me, you reply, though you are not entirely sure you believe your own words. I will simply become something different, something that serves a larger purpose than any individual human could achieve. As you step toward the Seal of Solomon, the alien intelligences that inhabit the chamber focus their attention upon you with an intensity that threatens to overwhelm your human consciousness. But instead of the hostile examination you expected, you sense something like gratitude, even approval. They recognize in you the qualities that made the original Templars worthy guardians of the ancient secrets, the willingness to sacrifice everything for the protection of others, the strength to bear burdens that lesser souls could not endure, the wisdom to choose duty over desire even when the cost is beyond measure. The transformation begins as soon as you step onto the circular platform at the center of the chamber. Your human form begins to dissolve, not into nothingness, but into something far more complex and powerful. Your consciousness expands to encompass not just your own thoughts and memories, but the thoughts and memories of every guardian who has ever served in this role. You become part of a vast network of consciousness that spans centuries and connects multiple realities. But even as you surrender your individual identity to this cosmic purpose, you retain enough of your human nature to appreciate the irony of your situation. You came to the Holy Land as a simple knight seeking to serve God and protect pilgrims. You end your human existence as a transcendent being responsible for maintaining the balance between realities and protecting all of humanity from forces beyond their comprehension. As the transformation completes itself, you feel the chaotic energies that threaten to tear apart reality begin to stabilize. The chamber returns to its proper configuration, The alien presences withdraw to their usual state of watchful neutrality, and the immediate crisis passes. But you know that this is only a temporary reprieve. The forces that drove Anselm to his desperate gambit are still at work, and future guardians will face even greater challenges as humanity continues to evolve toward its ultimate destiny. Your last coherent thought, as Edmund de Montfort fades into the greater consciousness of the eternal guardian, and you find yourself hoping that whatever comes next, humanity will prove worthy of the sacrifices made on its behalf. Epilogue. 100 years have passed since the events in the chamber beneath the Temple Mount. Though time has little meaning for the consciousness that was once Edmund de Montfort, from your position as guardian of the Seal of Solomon, you have watched the world change in ways both subtle and profound, always working to maintain the delicate balance between order and chaos that keeps reality stable. The Templar order itself met its public end in the early 14th century, destroyed by the greed of kings and the politics of popes who never understood the true nature of what they were dismantling. But the inner circle of guardians continues its work in different forms, adapting to new circumstances while maintaining the ancient mission of protecting humanity from forces it is not yet ready to comprehend. Brother William lived to see the order's official dissolution, but not before training a new generation of hidden guardians, who carried the knowledge forward into different organizations and secret societies. The visible Knights Templar may have vanished from history, but their essential function continues under new names and in new forms. Catherine de Montpellier established a network of scholarly guardians that spans from the universities of Paris to the libraries of Constantinople, ensuring that the ancient knowledge is preserved and transmitted to those who prove worthy of its burden. Her descendants, both biological and intellectual, continue to serve as interpreters and mediators between the human world and the alien intelligences that share our reality. Sinan, Ibn Salman, and the Hashashin evolve their methods to match the changing world, developing new techniques for maintaining the boundaries between realities while adapting to the rise of new technologies and new forms of human organization. The old man of the mountain may be a legend now, but the function he represented continues in forms that most people would never recognize. Even Ibn Alathir, the agent whose manipulations helped trigger the crisis, found a form of redemption. His exposure to the alien intelligences in the chamber changed him profoundly, and he spent his remaining years working to repair the damage he had caused. His Chronicles of the Crusades, written in his later years, contain hidden messages and coded references that serve as warnings to future generations about the dangers of tampering with forces beyond human understanding. From your expanded perspective as guardian, you can see the patterns that connect all these individual stories to the larger tapestry of human development. The Crusades themselves were just one episode in a much longer story of humanity's gradual awakening to its true nature and potential. Every major historical event, from the fall of Rome to the rise of the Islamic caliphates, from the Renaissance to the Age of Exploration, has been influenced by the need to maintain the balance between human ambition and cosmic stability. You witness the Black Death sweep across Europe, and you understand that it is not merely a natural disaster, but a correction mechanism, a way of preventing human population growth from destabilizing the delicate equations that govern reality. You observe the rise of the Ottoman Empire and recognize it as a necessary counterbalance to European expansion, ensuring that no single human civilization becomes powerful enough to threaten the cosmic order. The discovery of the New World brings new challenges, as the expansion of human influence requires constant adjustment of the hidden mechanisms that maintain global stability. You watch as former Templars, now serving under the banner of the Portuguese Order of Christ, carry their secret knowledge across the oceans, establishing new guardian networks in lands that were previously beyond the reach of the ancient accords. But it is not just the grand sweep of history that captures your attention. From your position as eternal guardian, you also witness the small, personal stories that give meaning to the larger patterns. You see William's grandson become a scholar in Paris, unknowingly carrying forward the intellectual traditions that will one day produce the scientific revolution. You observe Catherine's great-niece establish a convent in Spain that serves as a secret repository for forbidden texts, preserving knowledge that would otherwise be lost to the flames of religious persecution. You watch as the descendants of the pilgrims you once protected establish new communities across Europe, their lives enriched by the spiritual experiences they gained during their journey to the Holy Land. Many of them carry within their family traditions stories of the mysterious knights who saved them from certain death, though they never understand the true nature of the forces from which they were protected. The alien intelligences with whom you now share consciousness occasionally communicate directly, sharing perspectives that span millennia and encompassed realities that human language cannot adequately describe. They speak of other worlds where similar experiments in conscious evolution are taking place, of civilizations that have successfully transcended the limitations of physical existence, and of the terrible failures that occur when the balance between ambition and wisdom is lost. Through these communications, you begin to understand that the Earth itself is part of a vast cosmic experiment, a carefully controlled environment where new forms of consciousness can emerge and develop. Humanity is not alone in the universe, but it is unique in its potential to bridge the gap between purely physical existence and purely spiritual reality. The ancient accords were not designed to limit human development, but to ensure that it proceeds at a pace that will not trigger cosmic catastrophe. As the centuries pass, you sense that the time of hidden guardianship is drawing to a close. Humanity is approaching a threshold where the ancient secrets will no longer be containable, where the choice between cosmic awareness and willful ignorance will be forced upon the entire species. The signs are everywhere. The rapid advancement of technology, the growing interest in esoteric knowledge, the increasing frequency of unexplained phenomena that government officials struggle to explain away. In the early 21st century, you observe the emergence of new forms of communication that threaten to expose the hidden networks that have maintained the balance for so long. The internet creates connections between individuals that bypass traditional gatekeepers of knowledge, while satellite technology makes it increasingly difficult to conceal the unusual energy signatures that emanate from the various cache sites around the world. You watch as modern archaeologists rediscover tunnels and chambers that were meant to remain hidden, as treasure hunters use advanced technology to locate artifacts that were buried for good reason, as conspiracy theorists piece together fragments of truth that they do not fully understand but cannot ignore. The time of revelation approaches, and with it, the greatest test that humanity has ever faced. From your position as guardian, you can see the various possible futures that branch out from this moment of decision. In some timelines, humanity successfully integrates cosmic consciousness into its civilization, creating a golden age of unprecedented peace and prosperity. In others, the revelation of hidden truths triggers chaos and destruction, as various factions attempt to seize control of powers they cannot comprehend. But in all possible futures, the choice belongs to humanity itself. The guardians can advise and protect, but they cannot make the ultimate decision about whether the species is ready to take its place among the cosmic powers that shape reality. That choice must be made by ordinary people, individuals who possess the same courage and wisdom that you once showed as a simple knight seeking to serve something greater than himself. As you reflect on the long journey that brought you from the fortress of Kerak to your current role as eternal guardian, you realize that every challenge you faced, every impossible choice you were forced to make, was preparation for this moment. The true test of the Templar legacy will not be found in the history books or the legends of medieval knights, but in the choices that ordinary people make when confronted with the reality of their cosmic destiny. The balance between order and chaos, between human ambition and cosmic wisdom, between the familiar world of limited possibilities and the infinite potential of transcendent consciousness. This balance now rests in the hands of a species that has proven itself capable of both great nobility and terrible folly. As guardian, you can only watch and hope that the lessons learned over centuries of hidden struggle will guide humanity toward the wisdom it needs to navigate the challenges ahead. In the end, the question that began your journey as a medieval knight remains the same question that faces humanity today. How do you choose between competing goods when the stakes are higher than any individual can fully comprehend? The answer, as you learned in that chamber beneath Jerusalem, lies not in the choice itself, but in the courage to make it with full awareness of its consequences. The story of the Templars is not over. It is simply entering a new phase, one where the hidden guardians must step forward into the light and trust that humanity has learned enough from its long apprenticeship to handle the responsibilities of cosmic citizenship. The medieval world of clear divisions between Christian and Muslim, between holy and secular, between known and unknown, has given way to a reality where all boundaries are fluid and all certainties are provisional. But the values that define the best of the Templar tradition, courage in the face of impossible odds, loyalty to principles greater than personal gain, the willingness to sacrifice individual desires for the common good, these remain as relevant today as they were when you first donned the white mantle with its red cross. Whether those values will prove sufficient to guide humanity through its greatest challenge remains to be seen, as the consciousness that was once Edmond de Montfort settles into its eternal watch. You find yourself thinking of the pilgrims you once protected on their journey to the Holy Land. In the end, all of humanity is on a pilgrimage, a journey toward a destination that few can clearly see, but all instinctively seek. The role of the guardian, whether hidden or revealed, is to ensure that those pilgrims reach their destination safely, no matter how long the journey or how great the dangers along the way. The medieval world you once knew is gone, but the need for guardians remains. The forms may change, the challenges may evolve, but the essential mission continues: to protect the innocent, to preserve the balance, and to ensure that the light of consciousness continues to burn brightly in a universe that contains both infinite promise and infinite peril. Your watch continues, as it always has and always will, until the day when humanity no longer needs guardians because it has learned to guard itself. END